see smiling faces. I'm going to give you a challenge for today. And the challenge for you today is, can you take your phone, put it down for 16 full minutes? I bet you can't. So I have a question for you. When is the last time you sat with a difficult question for 5 whole minutes? Where you didn't look at your phone, you didn't Google something, you didn't go to AI, you didn't talk to a friend, you didn't go to social media. Can you remember that moment? I can. Can you? No. Now, I don't think that's your fault. Today, answers are easy. Answers are everywhere. They're fast, they're immediate, and I see people picking up their phones again, but that's okay if you want to take a picture of me. We should, I think, do things a bit differently. What I think we should be doing is we should take a moment that we think, and then we ask for help. I'm going to talk to you about 2 stories today. I'm going to talk to you about somebody in 1943 that saved a bunch of lives, and I'm going to talk to you a story about my son in the kitchen, where we could have sent him to the wrong place. The first story is about a guy named Abraham Wall. Abraham Wall was a statistician. The Americans were trying to figure out why planes were getting shot down. And what they did is they analyzed all the planes that were coming back from the front lines of the war. And they looked at where the bullet holes were. There were bullets in the wings. There were bullets in the tail. There were bullets everywhere. And people were thinking, you know what we need to do is we need to fix this, and we need to reinforce those areas. Abraham Wall raised another question. And his question, if it was there, what we saw is the planes that were coming back. We didn't see the planes that crashed. There was an invisible question here. And that invisible question showed, in fact, that the thing that you should be doing is not reinforcing where the bullet holes are coming through, but reinforcing the other areas of the plane, where the engines were, where the cockpit was. And what he did is something we find difficult to do today, which is to ask the right question before we look for an answer. What we're doing every day in every office around the world is people are spending their time reinforcing the wings of the planes. They're solving the wrong problem correctly. What we do is we look at the data that's available, we ask a question, and too often that question is the wrong question, and we come out with the wrong solution. We assume fast answers, speedy answers, are good answers. We Google it. We go to social media. We go to AI. The good news is when you used to Google something, you at least had to ask a decent question. Now, with social media and AI, you can get a great response, a brilliant response, without even thinking about it. And what happens is when you get that response, you start believing it. And when you believe it, if you don't even think anymore, and when you stop thinking, you solve the wrong problem. Now, AI is fantastic in lots of ways. It can help you solve any problem faster than you solved it before. But here's the dangerous part. When you're solving the wrong problem, oftentimes you don't even know. So what can you do to do things differently? There's a rule in life, and that rule has been there for a long time. Now, I'm not going to talk today about how horrible AI is. I'm not going to talk to you about nostalgic times. I'm not going to talk to you about the good old days. I'm older than many of you. I'm old here. But I'm going to talk to you about something that's always been true. And what's always been true is you need to identify the problem before you identify the solution. Because when you don't do it that way, you solve the wrong problem. What's happening for us right now is help is coming too early in our lives. We don't have time to pose the questions. It comes immediately. It comes fast. And that's changing how things are going. The first thing I want to talk to you about is something called productive failure. There's a guy named Manu Kapoor, and I had to write his name there because I wouldn't have remembered it. He worked at the University of Zurich. And he talked about the need for people to get things wrong before they get them right. Now, that sounds really counterintuitive. His research focused on one specific area of research, which is actually showing that, in fact, what we can do is give people a difficult challenge, a challenge they can't answer, a math problem you can't solve, and I know you can't solve it. And I'm going to give it to you. You're going to work on it. And you are going to be better because you failed. There's this thing called productive failure. When you fail at something before you succeed, your brain opens up, it creates a pathway for you to find the things that you need to succeed. This is not the best thing. Now, the question that might come up for you is, what do you do when you want to solve a problem and you have no idea how to solve it? And no ideas is not a bad place to start. But the easy place to start with bad ideas. Bad ideas, they're simple. Bad ideas are easy. Nobody has a lack of bad ideas. And what bad ideas can do for you is they can clear out space in your head. They can get you thinking about how you can solve something. And bad ideas actually lay the foundation for you to open up the door and find good solutions. The second thing that's happening right now is there's something which we call premature greed. The first answer owns the space, and then confirmation bias takes over. Let me tell you a story about somebody you might know. They're feeling a little ache. They go to Dr. Lee. They go on the internet. They find some bizarre disease that you've never heard about it before, but they know for a fact that they've got this disease. And then they start looking, and everywhere they look, there's confirmation bias. And everywhere they look, they see more and more things coming in. This is something that happens to all of us all the time. We actually overemphasize the first thing we see, the first answer we get, because that's what sets up our mind for the future. Now, what I see in meetings with companies is people are using AI. AI is really cool. Have you ever seen AI sound doubtful? Always knows what it's talking about. What happens is that well-phrased, confident response feels like clarity. And that seems like a good direction to follow. And too often what happens is when you have that first response before you've thought about it, you stick within that box. And when you stick within that box, it's really hard to get outside of the box. The last thing that happens is when you stop asking questions, there's a use it or lose it. If you don't ask questions, you lose your ability to think carefully, your ability to think clearly. You simply lose the ability to do what you need to do. Now let me give you some numbers here. When you write something, and I ask you 30 minutes later what you wrote, about 80% of you will be able to play back what you wrote. If you write that with AI, 83% will forget what you wrote. So when you're using that AI up front, what happens is you actually lose the ability to actually think. You don't even remember what you were thinking about. There's something you need to know that experts do different than novices. There's a study that I like very much, which is about physicists solving problems. They had two groups. They had experts and they had novices. The expert, in general, spends a lot more time focused on the question than he does on the solution. In fact, the expert, the PhD person, spends 50% more time on the problem definition than the novice does. What happens is they focus more time on understanding the principles and actually what they want to solve. And when they do that, as the researchers say, the solution came to them. Because defining the problem gets you almost to the point where you have a solution. Now you might say, well, okay, fantastic. These are smart people. The experts can stop and they can think, but I'm not an expert. Abraham Wall wasn't an expert. He knew nothing about planes. He was a statistician. Your key objective when you're trying to develop good ideas is to put in that pause, to put in the moment where you think, and frankly, it's not just for experts. And a lot of research that I've done has shown that in fact, when you put a group of people together, you have really clever people, you add one person that's not clever, the performance of the group goes up always. So you can be the not clever person if you want. Now what happens here? There's a good study that was done at TEDxENSAM. They had MBA students working with AI and without AI at different stages of the process. They had people working with AI during the problem formulation at the start of the process, before they had time to think. They had people working with AI at the end of the process, and they had people working with AI all the way through it. What happened with the people who used AI at the beginning? They had more ideas to analyze, but they analyzed them less. They were less strategically clear for a simple reason. AI gave you ideas, it gave you a frame, and you fit everything inside that frame. The people who used AI at the end had less ideas to start, but they were better at analyzing those ideas, and they actually analyzed more. Same tool, different results. Now, in decision science, the type of error that comes up by getting help too early has a specific name. It's called a type 3 error. A type 3 error is when you solve the wrong problem, but you solve it correctly. Let me give you an example. There's a company that's having problems with their sales numbers. They ask AI, can you give me a new marketing plan? A new marketing plan is making sense. Great social media, great visuals, great logos, great content. We even got an influencer to come in. It doesn't work. Why might it not work? Maybe it had nothing to do with the marketing being wrong, but maybe you had the product wrong. They solved the wrong problem correctly. That is a type 3 error. There's a great quote here by a guy named Russell Acott. He says, the more efficiently you solve the wrong problem, the worse it gets. That's an important thing to remember. Now I want to tell you a story about my son. My son is my hero in my life in many ways. He was looking for his first job. I said, wow, fantastic, this is going to be a good day. I was in solution mode. I said, Tebow, let's get started. We're going to print up your CVs, we're going to send them out, we're going to have you in a job by next week. He stops. Dad, you're not hearing me. I said, what? I paused. Dad, I don't want to work in Belgium. What I want to do is something completely different. I want to take care of kids, and I want to travel. What we ended up doing is we spent the afternoon trying to figure out how we could do things different. The end result is we found a job working as an au pair in Australia, which started a whirlwind tour for the rest of his life. He's lived in Australia, New Zealand, Croatia, Mexico, Jamaica, the US, all the way along the line. But the reality is we could have done this really well. If AI had been available on that date, we could have done this amazingly fast. We could have gone really fast in the wrong direction. We could have gone up on different lines, we could have made out the CV, we could have got it all started out. And actually what would have happened is we just would have gone faster in the wrong direction. Instead, we got it right. Now something you need to think about with AI. AI has an important limitation. And that limitation is AI is trained on things that happened already in the past. If you want to guess what's going to happen in the future, it's a pretty good predictor. But it can't dream forward. It can't imagine new questions. It can't imagine a question that's never been asked. It can't imagine a question that's never been posed before, and it can't see outside of the framework that you're looking at. That is your job. That's why you need to think before you ask for help. Now, is this difficult? Maybe. It needs to change the process. But you can change the system. There's another famous person out there, his name is Edward Deming. He talks about where things go wrong in companies. He said that in companies, 94% of the time, it is not the employee that's doing something wrong, it's the system that did something wrong. Only 6% of the time it comes back to the employee. It's the system that's wrong. You can change the system that you use to find ideas by doing some things really simple. You can ask a question. You can put in a constraint. You can put in a pause. You can come up with something very good. Now what happens when you don't do this? First, when you ask for help too early, you don't learn. You don't get better. You don't understand what you're talking about. Secondly, you don't own it. You get a reply, You lose the insight to be able to pose new questions. And perhaps as important as almost anything is you can't even evaluate whether the solution is any good. You don't know if you asked the right question, and you definitely don't know if you got the right solution. But for the people here, I have another reason, probably more important, is when you ask for help too early, what you end up doing is you end up competing with AI. AI is great at solutions. If you compete on providing solutions, you will never, ever, ever win. If you focus on questions, what you can do is you can stop competing with AI and start competing on where you are uniquely human and uniquely different. So what I'm going to suggest to you is a 3-step process. It's not hard. It's simple. You can write this down. Pause. Create some space. A couple minutes. Go back to that time that you had 5 minutes to think about something and do it for real. When you think for yourself up front, you create a frame in which the solutions can be found. Take your problem and imagine different ways that you can solve the problem, different ways you can reframe it differently, different ways that you can think about it differently, and then ask for help. Now, I have a realization. You're probably not going to do this. So I'm going to give you 2 baby steps. If you can't resist starting up with AI, I'm going to give you a suggestion. Instead of asking AI for a solution, do a switch. I'm working on this challenge. Ask AI to ask you some questions instead of giving you some answers. When it asks you questions, you'll be building that frame, and you'll do it automatically. The second thing I can suggest to you, and this is even easier, because you're going to forget, is change the instructions for your AI. You can write your instructions. When we're having a strategic conversation, I want you to challenge what you're recommending to me. I want you to ask me questions. So even if you forget, the AI won't forget. There's a famous quote attributed to Einstein. Nobody knows for sure if he really said it. But the quote goes something like this. If I needed to do something important where my life depended on it, and I needed to solve a problem that was a difficult problem, I would spend 55 minutes on the question, 5 minutes on the solution. Now, why would the brightest man of our generation do this? Because he knows the most important part is the question. It is not the answer. Now, what I would like you to do is to think about a ritual for the future. 55 minutes is too long. Nobody's going to do that. But I would like you to try for 5 minutes. The next time you have a difficult question, I want you to stop for 5 minutes. Think first, then ask for help. This is the thing that saved Wall and lots of bombers. This is the thing that saved my son from going to the wrong place. Let me repeat it again. Think first, then ask for help. Now, to give you an idea how long 5 minutes is, I put up a 1 minute timer. And what I'd like you to do is for just 1 minute is to reflect. Not pick up your phone, not look for an answer someplace else, but think. What can you do with this? Thank you very much. So let's see if anybody picks up their phone before this. You have 1 minute without your